All right, so what I want to talk about today is part of kind of an ongoing evolution of equipment I've been going through. You may have seen my review of the Palm phone recently, which I still love. But what I was going back and forth about was the battery life really a problem? What I found is after long rides in the new battery mode, I could still get 4 hours of battery out of the phone. However, I have ridden up to 6 hours, and it was one of those things where like you still like to have the extra buffer in case anything happened to use the phone. So I would still carry around my Venture 70 with me, and that required having this big console bag, which I would still use because I would keep my extra GoPro batteries in there. But then, tangentially, after I was accepted as a brand ambassador for endorphin cycling and triathlon, I realized I was just a cyclist. So I wanted to fit that role a little bit better. So I wanted to start running. And I immediately ran into a training problem. Previously, as a watch, I used a Garmin Instinct Solar Pro, which for a cyclist, I would say is great. The battery life on a full charge is measured at 27 days. And you still have days worth of GPS mode and normal execution. Yeah, I think it's like a week in what they call expedition mode. But what it did not have was a pulse oximeter. And, I only have one lung. And for me, trying to figure out how close can I get to oxygen saturation, how much further could I push myself without basically going into hypoxia, was important. Plus, almost every training mechanism out there for runners is built around like what's your VO2 max. So I invested in the Garmin Fenix 6S Pro Solar. Now that's an expensive thing. I mean, even on sale, I got it around the holidays for $700, and that was on sale. Plus, I got like an extra $25 off because they screwed up the order. Like, I made the order, I got the order confirmation screen. I was smart enough to take a screenshot of it, but I never got an order confirmation. So when I reached out to Garmin customer support, they're like, "Oh, the payment didn't process." I'm like, "Well, that's kind of funny. My card begs to differ." But what they did is they refunded that, and they recreated the cart for me to process it again, and they took like $25 extra off. And I was like, all right, whatever. I'm already basically putting a mortgage on the house down for this watch, so what's an extra 25? So, when it was ordered, there's like a 2-week period before it came in. I started looking at like, well, what else can I do? Because one of the big features of the Pro version of the watch is navigation on the watch. Like the difference is like the 6 line, not the 6 Pro, only has 64K of built-in memory. The Pro has 32 gigs. I think there's actually one model that has 64 gigs of memory. And what that's for is for storing map data and anything else that would cache information locally, like Spotify. And I was like, oh, that's kind of cool. And then I was like, wait, Spotify actually runs on this? And then I realized a new feature was that you could actually pair Bluetooth headphones to the watch. So let's stop for a moment and consider the things that I cared about. Like, let's go back to the video for the Palm phone, and let's talk about what I wanted out of that. I wanted navigation. All right, ride with GPS was important. I wanted music. Other things like Instagram. Okay, cool. It was there if I ever used it. I did start using it recently for lives, so live streaming, because you could get a visual of the face as opposed to just what the fuck my camera's looking at. But so we had in-ear cues, you had music, and you had navigation. Now, all of that was like $300-ish wrapped into a little phone that was mounted on the front of the bike. So now let's look forward at the Fenix, all right? It has Spotify on it. I can cache my playlist to it. I don't require network connection to listen to it. My headphones pair to this. My speed and cadence sensors are already paired to this. Are you starting to see the correlation now? Like, it's all there. So then the only real gap was, well, I use Ride with GPS for, course definition. That's what our club uses. But then I found out that Ride with GPS has course API integration with Garmin. So it's not a Garmin. The Connect IQ app is not available for the Fenix, but What there is there's a back-end integration for the courses. So like in Ride with GPS on my account, it's authorized to go pro and back in, in both directions. If I go into Ride with GPS and pin a course, there's a webhook that sends that course TCX data to Garmin. Garmin processes it, makes a few adjustments to make sure its format, and then as long as I have data when it's happening, eventually that course is on the watch. So now, all I do before I leave, as opposed to just open up the phone and download the route, I make sure it's pinned. Like the moment I RSVP the event, it goes to Garmin Connect, to my phone, course is stored on the watch. So at this point, this watch is doing everything my computer was, plus some more. So now we get back to, like basically we've redone what I had wanted from the smartphone, the Palm phone, but there's some other added benefits. While the Instinct's battery was measured in like a month, the Fenix's battery is measured at 9 days at a full charge. When you go in, according to their information, I have yet to use it. When you go into full GPS mode plus music, you're supposed to get 10 hours. Now, if we compare that to the phone, that's still 6 hours more. But I also have the solar version. So being on the road, I will be getting a little bit more charge. You might get an extra hour, 2 hours, I don't know, on the efficiency, like what kind of glass or voltaic cells are using, but it will be charging as you go. So now I have a device that will last longer than my longest ride, has everything in it. And the other big thing is my cadence sensors would pair to the Instinct, but the Instinct, if you can see it, is like a monochromatic e-ink interface. You can't, it's very limited in how you can kind of move the pieces around. And you can only really use pre-built widgets. The Fenix is different though. Like on my bike screen, for example, I can display my sensors. So when I'm in a biking activity, I can have the navigation and then a button away, like all my stats. So that if I wanted to, I could get my cadence and everything directly off the watch. It's not as much of an issue because I'm not doing Q sheet navigation anyway. It's more relevant for like what's my speed. But it's all there. It's all stored also just on Garmin Connect like everything else. But now, let's put it all together full circle. The watch has everything. It's got the music, it's got navigation, and it's got sensor pairing, and I can view the sensor data if I choose to. The big benefit to this is the battery life is self-contained longer than I would need, and self-contained longer than I would need, but secondarily, it can charge on its own as it goes. So let's look at the gear that I have on the bike. To support the phone, I had this big console bag that had a lithium-ion Venture 70 from Goal Zero in it, and basically had some GoPro batteries, and that was it. That whole arrangement doesn't need to be on the bike now. I will still take the Palm phone with me because it's literally got a SIM card and I can call people with it. But what I'm going to do is I'm just going to leave it off, so I literally have 4 hours of use without having to mess with it. But it's just going to stay in the zippered back pocket on my jersey because the phone itself is IPX rated for, it can be in the rain, it's fine. You just don't want to throw it in a pond. Worst case scenario, I can put it in my waterproof speed sleeve. I might actually see if I can find a hard case so it doesn't get smashed up in there because I have my multi-tool in there. And then at that point, the weight profile has changed. There's nothing in front of me. No forward mounting gear on the bike because I moved away from having the GoPro mounted to the stem. I moved to a Bontrager wave cell helmet. And when I did that, I got one of the vented helmet straps so that the camera is mounted up here. So I have no need for anything mounted to the stem of the bike anymore. And my light is actually just mounted to a stem built-in kind of action mount. So there's nothing else attached to the stem. All I do is attach a light and then we're good to go. So it's huge. I have yet to actually take the watch out to ride to see how it goes, namely because it's gotten cold as balls lately. We were supposed to have a Saturday ride for the club this weekend. Do not think I'm going to go. I'm just a little bit more nervous with the amount of infections that are going on right now, especially in North Carolina. I will probably stick to the trainer for a little bit, even though I have to take my bike to Bontrager for them to replace one of my derailleurs. But, you know, I'll follow up. But this watch could literally solve all of my requirements. The only thing that's different is it's not like straight in line. The only thing that I would do differently is, because normally I wear the watch face up like you would any normal watch. If I ride, I might invert that to have the face here so that when you're riding, you know, you don't actually have to adjust the arms to get a glance at it. But that's, you know, that's minimal. And even if you have to look at the arm, it's like, oh, no big deal. Now it is a huge investment. I mean, for me, it was still $700. So let's back that up. The phone itself was like $300. But then let's look at some of the Garmin computers. You know, like $600 for the 1030 Edge. I want to say I was looking at spending $400 on like the Wahoo Element. So you're talking about investment. It's like $300 more. But the thing that I like about it is you know, everything's self-contained. It's integrated. My health measurements and everything come from here. The Fenix also goes a little bit farther in Connect, where it will display your VO2 level, but also training type by measurement. So it'll be like, it'll measure whether you were, for your anaerobic and aerobic work, like what, you know, whether based on your heart rate, whether you in tempo, what kind of gains you would expect from that exercise per category. So like most of mine is spent in tempo to increase my cardiovascular load over time. But when you do cardiovascular or anaerobic work, like weights or interval training, it tracks to tell you based on your exertion if you're overreaching, if you're at tempo, you're extending, or if you're just kind of staying where you are. So there's a lot of benefits to it, but it solved a lot of the conundrums I had about the bike in general. So hopefully, when I finally take the thing out on the road, we'll see, like, do I need anything else? Because the way I feel about it now, I don't. The other thing is, this not being a phone, you're not distracted. Like the Palm phone was still an Android phone, and you could still get notifications, and you could still get calls. My brother had this notorious skill to be able to call me in the middle of a hill climb, no matter what fucking day it was. Now it's a little bit nicer because it's quiet. You got the music. Unless you got the phone on for notifications to run through, you don't have to worry about them. You can actually turn those off and connect before the ride too. Just like the Instinct had, there's a no disturb mode, do not disturb mode on the watch, so you can silence all notifications. But when they're going into the headset too, it was kind of hard to ignore them. That they were always showing up onto the screen, which is where my GPS navigation was happening. So now it's just gonna be a lot more quiet, a lot cleaner. I'll still use the music controls on the actual Aftershok's Aeropexes, so nothing has really changed about the way that I would interface with everything while I ride, just where everything is. So it's not like I'm a pro cyclist, and it's not like that 2.5 pounds that I'm pulling off the bike will make an immediate difference. But when you extend that ride into 4, 5, 60, 100 miles, you know, it adds up. I'm not saying it's going to make a difference yet, but I am very excited about what this watch can do for me. And so, you know, we look at that difference in cost. You know, if you look at like the top, like if you're going to buy an expensive ass computer and spend $600 on the Garmin Edge 1030, you're only like $300, maybe $400 away. Depending on how this goes, I would say maybe it's worth saving your money and saying, I'm going to save up and get this watch, because the cycling computer is only going to do good on the bike, right? But, you know, I use this as a runner. Track my VO2 max, track my heart rate and everything else. You have something way more inclusive, but also that gets you everything that you may be looking for in a cycling computer. So hopefully it will be as good for you as it was for me, giggity. But I will follow up shortly after my next ride. I don't know when it's going to be, because of the pandemic and it actually getting cold in North Carolina. But once I have some actual feedback, I'll post another video going over some maybe cons that I came across when I was riding, or some kind of annoyances. But so far, I am super stoked about what the watch may be able to do for me.